children set on fire, just things you can't even...
Barbaric things I've ever heard of in my life. And that if that wasn't bad enough, I then just opened the internet.
I know.
Resistance. What?
Justification.
What? Resistance against what?
There should be no hiding place for anti-Semites.
Right.
Because they are...
But they don't see themselves as anti-Semites. No. I don't hate Jews. I only have a problem with... Zionists. But 95% of Jews are Zionists.
Yeah.
Guess what?
100%.
There's only one Jewish country in the world.
Yeah.
One.
Why do you have a problem with that? Exactly. And the problem is they deconstruct their own character almost immediately, because they give the righteous indignation of their virtue signaling position to say, what about the women and children? You slaughter women and children. But if their position of caring about women and children was true, they would have cared about the millions of women and children, as you quite rightly say, in Nigeria, in Yemen, in Syria, in Ukraine. Let's not forget all of those people still being slaughtered by the Russians.
I don't know how to describe it.
Yes.
Because I go through multiple emotions in a single second.
Yeah.
And that is mainly around anger, frustration, sickness, sadness, and anxiety. But that all in the space of that 1 second is all coming to a head together. And that's the only way I can describe how every Jewish person is feeling right now. It is the most complex conflict in the history of time.
Yeah.
If half the politicians don't understand it, why, Karen in Leeds, do you think that you can throw around the words genocide, ethnic cleansing? You want to talk about ethnic cleansing?
Yeah.
The smallest group of people ever, Jews.
My name is Claudia Green, and this is She Did That, the podcast shining a spotlight on remarkable women who are breaking barriers and proving that greatness knows no gender. From female founders who have raised millions of pounds, the investors changing the landscape as we know it, to survivors of tragedy who have achieved the amazing, and many more. We will share the stories of these incredible women who will inspire and empower you. In order to support us and these women, please subscribe on your viewing or listening channel of choice, so we can continue our mission of sharing the stories that should and need to be heard.
So it's extremely difficult to summarize this week's guest. She's unbelievably special, not just to me, but to many millions now around the world. And her story is truly inspiring. Her name is Reverend Hayley Ace, and she really is the antithesis of this podcast. She did that. And she is an example to all women to shout louder and not stop shouting until you're heard. I'm really, really, really honored to have Reverend Hayley Ace. Welcome, Reverend Hayley Ace.
Thank you so much for having me. Really, it's really an honor to be here.
Well, I remember I first reached out to you when I saw you on Instagram. So I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw a video of you talking. You just joined Instagram.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, who's this beautiful woman? And then I said, oh, that's a funny name. What, her name is Reverend? And I was like, hang on a second, Reverend?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, she's lying. Has she just made herself a reverend? Or like, is she actually an ordained
Went
reverend?
online and just kind of like got something. Yeah.
And I feel ashamed admitting this, but this is exactly why you're the perfect kind of guest to have on here. Because aside from your story, I love having guests, you know, women that are breaking stereotypes, and that is 100% you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because when someone says, oh, Reverend someone,
yeah.
I'm like, it's an old man.
A white, grey
old
haired
man.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I saw you and I was like, what is going on? I thought, what's her deal? But then I started looking at your videos and I fell in love immediately.
Thank you.
And then obviously I met you quite a few months ago now.
Yes. It was Yom, the anniversary.
Hatzmaut.
Yes, Hatzmaut.
Yeah. Okay. Love that. And now we're here. We made it.
I know. This is so nice.
There's a lot to unpack.
There is so much to talk about. I mean,
know.
apart from like just life in general, this last year has been like a whirlwind, hasn't it?
Honestly, it has. But I feel like, and we'll go into this more later, but I do feel like out of every tragedy comes teeny tiny little positives.
100%.
And from what I can see from you, you've made all these unbelievable new friends.
I know.
And you've kind of found your calling
Yeah,
in a way.
absolutely. Yeah.
And it's been amazing, obviously, what an ally you have been as well to the Jewish people.
Well, to me, it's like we've been doing this work, my husband and I, for a long time. And but then when October 7th happened, it kind of turbocharged all of our efforts. And really, I never wanted to go on social media because, first of all, I felt too old, really, honestly.
I mean, you look my age, so.
No, I'm not though. And I felt like I didn't want to be embarrassing to my kids because our eldest child is 20, and then we have an 18-year-old. And I thought this is much for the younger generation. And I also don't want to make anything about myself. I am really private. And I also thought I don't want to make this about Hayley. I want to make this about Christians who are morally clear-minded and clear-thinking, not about, me as if I'm some virtuous woman. But then I realized as time went by and so many people said to me, sometimes people need a face to connect it to and a person. And so I thought, okay, I will do it. And then a friend of mine who I won't name drop, but she said to me, if I can do it, you need to do it. And so,
It's true though. And I think, I think the content of what you've been saying and posting and doing has been what's captivated people. But I do think it is also, you've got a very infectious personality. You connect with people very quickly. And again, you are bucking the stereotype. So it's a bit, for a lot of people, they look and they think, oh, okay, I didn't realize. And you don't want to say it in an offensive way.
No, but it's not offensive because it's true. It is true. There's just not enough people speaking out about anti-Semitism. But then also you don't see many reverends or church leaders that are perceived to be young and...
I mean, you are young.
Young and don't have the grey hair and are not male and are like ethnically mixed. Even though I look white, I am Polynesian.
Yeah.
And so, that is something that's quite different.
Okay, so I remember amongst all the loud noise, you gave me a background of you and my jaw just dropped to the ground because I couldn't believe what you're telling me. If it wasn't fascinating enough who you are now, when you told me your story, I thought, oh my goodness.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, for lots of reasons, what you've been through, the bravery, the things that have shaped you for who you are today. And on this podcast, we talk a lot about turning trauma into passion.
Amazing. I love that.
And I think that is true for you as well.
Yeah.
Being able to take something difficult and channeling it in a way where you can help other people.
Absolutely.
Is an incredible skill that not everybody has. I wish they did for their sakes.
I agree.
So let's go back. I couldn't believe this when you told me, so I can't wait for you to retell.
Yes.
Okay.
Where do we start?
Baby Hayley.
Okay,
was born, and let's start from there.
Okay. How long do we have?
You emerged from the womb.
From my Māori mother, Polynesian mother, who was one of 10 children. She was from a big family. In New Zealand, in a little town called Hikurangi. It was one street. If you blinked, you would miss it as you drove through. And we were just a very close-knit family. I have lots of cousins. I mean, so many. The normal amount at a family funeral is about 1,000 people. Not even for the young people, tragic death. That's just kind of average. And so we had this idyllic life growing up, eating the seafood and having an outdoorsy life. And then when I was around 7 years old, my parents said to my brother and I, we feel that they were first generation Christians. So the first Christians in both of their sides of the family. And they said, we feel that we need to go and help the poor in Africa. We feel that God is telling us to do that. So can you kids pray and see if you feel, because we can't do anything unless we all feel it. And so even though I was only 7 and my brother was 5, we went and prayed, because we have this close relationship with God from a young age. And we felt God saying, yes, this is the right thing, gave us peace in our heart. So there was never a sense of loss of leaving our family or going to the unknown, to Africa in the 80s. When there are no mobile phones, white people are not a common sight in this part of Africa we were going to go to. So we packed up and sold everything, sold all my Barbie dolls. We had a little garage sale and we moved to Africa.
Which part?
We moved to Kenya in a town called Kisumu. And we really lived with the people that we wanted to help, because we felt that, you can't live as like a white colonizing missionary on a hill and then come down into the village every now and then and just hand out, food. You actually need to get in with the people and understand what their issues are so you can really make a difference. So we did that. We lived in complete poverty. We didn't have windows on where we were living. We had like a squat down toilet, like a hole. And we really lived with the people. And so we had some incredible experiences where we would go into the jungle and it would be literally the first white people they'd ever seen. They were touching us like we were some sort of gods. It was just crazy. It was like amazing. And we saw incredible miracles, which is really what solidified my faith in God. I literally saw my parents pray for people, asking God, the creator. And I know the Jewish people say Hashem, we just say God, or Father God. And I saw people's limbs grow, like miracles that you can't explain. It wasn't like you could explain it away, or maybe you read into it wrong. Things that actually happened and I saw with my own eyes. People that were on the verge of death suddenly springing to life after being prayed for. And so that really solidified my faith. But then I also saw this side of life, which I'd never experienced before, living up in this idyllic childhood in New Zealand, of mass corruption and how dark people can be and how uncaring people can be about children, especially when we were there. Polygamy is a big thing in Africa. So if a man takes 7 wives, one of the wives dies, she has children that no one else wants to take care of. So the children get cast out, and they would often be found in the rubbish dump, little children, toddlers and babies. And they had no care if these children lived or died. There is no social benefit system.
Yep. The father's alive, he just don't
care, because he's got other children and he can't feed them anyway. So they would be completely abandoned. And we would find children that had, like scales all over their body. I mean, really like cringy stuff that makes me itch just thinking about. But these poor babies had nobody. No one cared. The government didn't care. And the level of just no compassion that humans can have for other humans really had a big impact on me. But then there was adventure as well. There was a time, because New Zealanders, especially Māori, we feel very one with the ocean and water. It's ask any Polynesian, which is why, have you seen Moana, the film?
Yes.
So we're very connected to the water, and it's just something in us. And so we decided to hire a boat one day, and we went onto Lake Victoria. So we went onto this huge lake. You can't see the other side. It's very much like an ocean. And my mum saw this huge pod of hippopotamus. So we didn't know hippos kill more people than crocodiles and lions. Right. My mum said they're the cows of the water. Go and have a swim with them. So we were like, this is amazing. Let's go for a swim. So we jumped in and we swam with all of the hippos. We were in the middle of a huge family of hippos, and they didn't touch us. And we thought they wouldn't touch us because they're like, cows. And then the fishermen were shouting at us. But there was a lot of adventure and a lot of close calls, but we were always safe, and we never had this idea that we were in any danger.
Okay, so you survived the hippos.
Survived the lions, survived the malaria, which...
That's what I was going to say when it came to healthcare, because obviously you lived in poverty, but you weren't impoverished, as in you obviously had your parents had some money.
Yeah.
So what if there was a medical emergency?
Yes. So we couldn't open a bank account in Africa to hold all of our money. And because there's so much corruption, you can't just put all of your money into an account back in the 80s. So what we did is we had family members transfer the amount of money that we would need per month into a small account, and then we would take that. But my mum, every time she saw a need, she'd be like, okay, that person needs clothes, that person needs feeding. So we would always run out of money by the end of the month to wait for the next paycheck. And then we didn't have a mobile phone or a telephone even to ask for more money. So we really had to stretch it out. So when we did have medical emergencies, and every single one of my family got malaria every 5 weeks.
Sorry, got malaria every 5 weeks?
Yeah.
Did you not was there a vaccination then?
Not really. In the 80s, you had a tablet, but the tablet would make you really, really unwell, and you would have ulcers in every single part of your mouth. Like your mouth was one big ulcer. So it was like, take the ulcer, which you will then not be able to eat, or just take the malaria. I know.
Can you not die from malaria?
Yeah, you can. But if you have access to medical care, then you're okay. Because really what happens, it's like amoebic dysentery. You just can't stop throwing up and going to the loo, and then you get dehydrated, which is what kills people. But we did always have access to, the very harsh injections. It was like poison that they would inject you with to try and kill the malaria. But yeah, I couldn't give blood. When I moved to this country, I couldn't give blood for 8 years because malaria lives in your body. Yeah. So it was like an adventure. It was crazy. It was a very unique childhood that I didn't realize was unique until I grew up and realized not everyone's parents took them to a third world country to do this thing of helping people. And they actually established and supported so many amazing charities. And one of them was a children's home that ended up becoming the biggest children's home in East Africa. And our first child that they managed to get off the street was given such an amazing education. He got a scholarship to Oxford.
Wow.
Yeah. So really amazing stories, and just being involved in helping people and looking at the bigger picture.
How long were you living in Kenya for?
Almost 2 years.
Okay. That's a long time.
Yeah.
When you look back at it, do you think that was amazing, I got to experience that? Or, God, that was awful?
Yeah, I think it was amazing.
Yeah.
And my parents always made everything an adventure. They weren't people that worried about anything, but they weren't cavalier.
They were responsible.
Yeah. But they took, they made sure they took all of the precautions, but they were also like, the world is bigger than us, and there are people that need help, and we need to be part of a positive change in the world. My dad is also huge, so I always felt safe with him. And my mum is extremely feisty. So I always felt like my parents will always have it.
Yeah.
So for example, we had booked tickets to leave Africa, and the night before we left, we were robbed, and they stole our tickets, our passport, and all of our money. And then we were stranded. And so there is no New Zealand consular or embassy in Kenya. So we went to the British, thinking that the British might help us because we are part of the Commonwealth, but they turned us away. And she said, my mum made us stay there, and she made such a fuss. And her kind of big statement, she's a very wise woman, and she said to me, always throughout my life, the squeakiest nut gets the most oil. If you're in a car.
Yeah.
And so don't be a silent nut and think you're going to get the attention that's needed if you need it. So if you need something done, do not stop making a noise about it. And so she didn't. And after a few hours, they realized this woman would cause such a fuss. She said, if my kids die, if we get murdered, if anything happens to us, do not think that I will not bring down every single media company. So it was so I always felt safe.
Do you think those people ever got their way to New Zealand?
I don't know.
With your tickets?
I don't know, I know. Actually, it was coming to England, so they might have.
They could be here now.
They could be here now, saying that they're Hayley Ace and...
God. Okay, so you managed to finally get away. How old are you at this point? About 9 or 10?
Yes, 9, just before I turned 10.
And then where was the next destination?
So the next destination was Diss in Norfolk.
Oh.
Completely random.
Much more me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice and country. But it was really weird how we got there, because my parents felt we should come to England to see what we can do to help, which is also funny, coming from Africa, a third world country, then to come to England, which is a modern country with benefit systems, to think that they need help, So they were like, we feel this is the right thing to do. We feel that we should be in England as a family. So we turned up at the airport. And then my parents just said, let's wait and see what God says. So there was no plan. They had a backup plan, which you might think sounds completely insane. They knew that we could go to a hotel, but they very much felt led by, if God says do it, then let's do it. Let's just wait. So they waited. So we waited in the airport for God to tell them what to do, which probably sounds really crazy, doesn't it? Yes.
Yeah, probably a bit.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it does, and that's honest. Yeah. But for us, that was normal. So we waited, and they said, like, God, just direct us. Otherwise, we'll go to a hotel in London.
Yeah.
And that's what we'll do. And so this guy comes up to us, this Australian, and he saw on my mum's guitar this fish symbol, which is a Christian symbol, which is an ancient Christian symbol, which is what the first Christians used when it wasn't called Christianity, when it was a Judean sect called the Way. And they used to write this on the sand to say, we believe that Jesus is the Messiah. That's what they used to do. So this fish symbol is a Christian symbol. And my mum had it on her guitar. And this guy came over and said, are you guys Christians? Because I am, and I've just arrived. And we said, yeah, we're just waiting on the Lord. And he kind of understood that. It wasn't weird to him. And he said, I totally get it. Well, just so you know, I have been given a huge, like, 7-bedroom house in Norfolk.
Wow.
If you've got nowhere to stay, why don't you come and stay with us? But he also had a family and children. And he said, what we'll do, let's pray. And if the guy who turns up comes with a big van and a trailer, it means you're supposed to come. But he probably won't, because he knows he's only picking up me and my wife and 2 kids. Meanwhile, the man that was picking them up felt God tell him, there's going to be something extra coming back from the airport. Bring a trailer and hire a big minivan.
Oh my goodness.
So he did. And he was like, didn't understand why. Then he turned up at the airport and said, this is so weird. God told me to hire this trailer and this big van. And now I know why. And so we thought, okay, this is the sign. And we went and stayed with them. This random Australian couple. So it was like always an adventure. And it wasn't like going into an unsafe, weird, cultish environment, because my parents have got their heads screwed on. It was kind of having this life of, I don't know whether it's nomadic or kind of going back to being like Old Testament people of just saying, where do you want me to go, Lord? And I'll go, taking everything literal.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. So how long did you live in that house for?
So we lived there for a few months, and then we started going to a church, and then a guy in the church said, God, I'm wealthy, but God has told me about, a little while ago to make my house available because missionaries are going to come from overseas. And he told me to make this house ready, and I have, and now I realize I was making it ready for you. So then he gave us this house.
Oh my goodness.
I know. And my brother on the plane, my mum said, why don't you pray and ask God for one little gift that you could have when we get to England? So my brother prayed for this skateboard. And little did we know that the family who didn't know about us at this point, who were planning, preparing this house, their grandson said, God's just told me that there's a little boy that's going to come and he wants a skateboard.
Nice.
Yes, like for real. And so when we walked into this house and there was a skateboard, my brother was like, this is amazing. Like, this is probably why my faith is so strong, because so many things that, could it be coincidence? Maybe. But I don't know.
Those are pretty big coincidences.
Yeah, exactly. And so many things that we went through, like in Africa, my parents, my grandmother and my auntie died in really tragic circumstances. They died in car crashes, separate car crashes, within a week of each other. My mum flew back to New Zealand, and then my dad got amoebic dysentery, typhoid and malaria, all at the same time. And he fell in
Norfolk?
No, in Kenya.
Right.
This was just before we came to England.
Yeah.
And then my brother fell into a coma with Kenyan measles, and then I was on my own. And so I went and asked to stay with the doctor in the hospital, and he said, well, in order to stay with me, you need to do jobs. So my job was to go around and pick up all the used needles. Bear in mind, this is when all the AIDS was a massive thing. And my job was to pick up all the needles, the used needles, take them into the kitchen, boil the needles to clean them, and then pick them all out, lay them on a towel, dry them to be used again. So that was my job, to keep going. But all of these little things that happened, I always had this sense that like God is with me, so why would I be afraid of anything? And it really has carried me through all of these situations. Like in Norfolk, one of my very closest friends, I made 3 friends when I first got there. And one of the boys didn't turn up to school. He was one of my friends. And it transpired that he had been murdered by his uncle. Him and his sister were murdered by his uncle because his uncle didn't like their mother.
This is insane.
Yeah, like so many crazy things that you'd think this has to be made up, but this is actually real.
Norfolk, then what?
Norfolk, then we moved to Waltham Abbey.
Okay.
When my parents were offered a church, and then we kind of got into normal life, British life. We went into British schools, and we had been home educated in Kenya because, you know, it's really hard to get into schools, and my parents wanted to keep us with them, so we would go and play with the monkeys whilst they were, you know, preaching or whatever, helping the poor. And it was really strange and weird to come into a like Western country where everyone has everything, but everyone moaned about everything. Yeah. You know, it's like honestly, like seriously, I was like, you don't even have any problems. I've been in a country where people's parents have been hacked to death in front of their face, and they're like trying to get on and build something and do something, and they want a toy, so they find rubbish and they create it. You lot have everything, and you're mean to each other, you're unkind to each other, and you moan about every single thing. Your parents are together. You are safe.
And it's only getting worse now because we live in a society where you can have instant gratification. It's not even a case of, I want this at this time in the future. It's, I want it now.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what's so toxic.
Yeah.
And I always think about, you know, if one day I have children, how would I want to raise them? Because something is not going quite right in the format that it's currently taking place.
Yeah.
And what could I do differently to have humble?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most important characteristics. Someone who is humble. I don't care what they have, what I have.
Yeah.
I want them to be humble.
Yes.
That's probably why I'm not married. Can't find a humble man.
No, they are out there. They are out there. Don't lose hope.
Few and far between.
I feel sorry for the generation who are trying to find husbands.
Oh, honestly, I feel sorry for me.
Yeah. There's so much narcissism.
It's rife.
Yeah. And it's like loyalty's not, all of these basic values that we had as a society are not values anymore. They're kind of lame. Like loyalty and like integrity and decency and, you know, even just being civil and just a kind person. Everyone thinks about themselves.
The other week, someone said that I was old-fashioned, and I said, why? What makes me old-fashioned? Like, is being kind, humble, loyal, trustworthy, like sticking to your guns and fighting for what you want, is that old-fashioned?
Yeah, I know.
And
that's terrible.
I know.
That's awful.
I know. That's why I feel like an 80-year-old woman trapped in a
gorgeous young body. But even that whole idea of like with the whole narcissism and just this idea of self, there is no more care about community, you know, like caring about people lesser off than yourself. And then everything is toxic masculinity, or feminism isn't even feminism anymore. I went to a Germaine Greer a little kind of meeting with her when she was reading out of her recent book. And she said Germaine Greer, who was very much burn the bras, she said feminism isn't even feminism. She's rejected by feminism now because feminism is in this new wave that it's not about women empowerment. It's about let's just put men down. You know, a white straight man is the worst person you can be.
And this is exactly, and I go to many, many events and I don't feel like I belong at them. I don't enjoy them and I don't agree with what they're saying, because I think a true feminist is someone who wants to fight for equal rights.
Yes, absolutely.
Not someone that puts down men for being men, squashes opportunities for men because a woman should deserve it more.
I agree.
Like the roots of feminism was fighting for the same as a man had, and that's a fair enough fight.
Absolutely.
But to fight for more than a man has, what are we doing here? Are we going to have an opposite situation?
Yeah.
And then that's disastrous.
100%. Or when women try and be men, thinking that that's powerful. And it's like feminism. We should be like the femininity that is the natural state for a woman is like a powerful force.
Yeah.
But it's not celebrated. And, you know, strong men aren't celebrated. And it's really scary to see what this generation that's coming up behind us. It's a scary place.
I know.
But they don't realise. They think it's really like liberal and progressive.
It's really not.
It's not.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's that.
So let's move forward into, so you sort of settled down
And
in Waltham Abbey.
Settled down in Waltham Abbey, went to school, then, you know, did the whole, I'll buzz through it because they're the boring things of went to school, got my boyfriend who is now my husband, and we fell in love, but we broke up because we wanted to make sure we were right for each other, and especially that we were so intense. Like we're so intense now. We're like teenagers. Everyone was like, "You're so young to be this intense about someone."
Yeah,
you know, you don't.
And
really
people
know
always
what you're doing.
steer you away when you get into an intense relationship.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's the intensity that's the problem. I think it's that as long as you're showing healthy behaviors towards each other, respect and kindness
100%.
towards each other, then it's okay to be intense. Some people just prefer that.
Yeah.
It's nothing wrong with the intensity itself. So when people warn you off intense relationships, I wonder, and they say, you know, it's supposed to just grow. And I think, is it?
I know. It's
not
like
very
we were just
exciting.
Romeo and Juliet and like really in love. And
I love that.
we were like really in love and just like everything to each other. But we broke up. And then we had a long time apart. And during that time, I went on holiday with my mum and my best friend and my two aunties.
Did you go somewhere normal?
We went to somewhere normal, no third world, no squatting in toilets. It was Greece.
Fabulous.
Santorini.
Finally. Okay.
Finally.
Some luxury in Hayley's life.
Well, there was luxury. I mean, when we used to travel, we've been to Hawaii, Fiji. We used to, when we traveled, we would go to everywhere cool, Disneyland, blah, blah, blah. So we went to Santorini. We went out one night. My mum stayed at home. And so I was just about 18. And we were given these welcome drinks. You know, when you go on holiday and they're like, ouzo, oppa, you know, it's all fun, vibes, etc. So we came in, given these drinks, and this older man at the bar, I think he was probably about 50, he kind of got a different drink and gave it to me and said, "This is special." And so I was like, amazing, took the drink. And then all of my, you know, my friends, my aunties went off. My aunties are young because my mum's one of 10, so they're quite similar age to me. They went off and danced. And I started feeling, I can't really feel my hands very quickly. And I realized that I was feeling really woozy and just unsteady. And so the guy who gave me the drink, which I thought was a nice guy, he said, "Do you need some fresh air?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't feel well." And he was like, "Let's get you some fresh air." And by the time he came over and was helping me, I was like almost collapsed. And he was kind of had me around his, you know, my arm around his shoulder. And then he was taking me out the back. He took me out the back to this like desolate wasteland behind. And I thought the door was just there. I could have gone to the front where all the people were. But this was now, suddenly I realized I'm in danger, but I can't function. I can't do anything. And then I fell on the floor, and then he just did the most brutal rape, which is actually how I lost my virginity. And it was harsh. And I thought, my main thing I thought was this: if I get murdered, this is going to destroy my mum. She's only just recently lost her mum and her sister. She's already lost her dad. This is so cruel. Like, please let me not die. And I knew I couldn't stop him, so I couldn't move. And then he went on to do some horrible things with like branches. Yeah, to like be like very sadistic.
It's completely sick. I mean, it's sick anyway to take advantage of a young woman.
Yeah.
But that's
next level.
Another level, yeah.
Yeah. So that was it. And I just waited, and then he left, and I thought, great. And I waited until my feeling came back, and I sort of stumbled up and put my because my dress was kind of pulled down and up, and I put my clothes back on and sort of my hair out, and thought, right, what am I supposed to do now? Because when I went back in, my auntie and my friend they were all drunk, and I knew they wouldn't be able to help me. And I was and I said, I want to go, please. Can we go? And I couldn't remember. It was like my memory was affected. I couldn't remember. I couldn't point him out. I didn't see him, but I just knew I have to go. I want to get back to my mum. I want to have a shower. That was my immediate reaction. It wasn't even to call the police, because I thought, and I don't know if this is just because of watching lots of films or knowing about so many women who have rape stories. It's awful how many women have the Me Too. So many. I don't know many that don't, to be honest. There's something that they have. And my first reaction was, I need to shower, because I was injured as well. I was bleeding. And so I got home and, got to the hotel, and that's when I had to get rid of the things that were, inserted. It was awful, really awful. God. Yeah, awful. And I realised afterwards, I've literally washed away evidence. But I didn't think about that at the time.
No, you wouldn't know if you were you were traumatized and in shock, and probably still not completely, the drugs hadn't completely gone through you yet.
Yeah, and I just thought, I have to get clean. I feel gross. I just need to get clean. And then I realised there's no evidence. So now I will have to go into a Greek system versus a Greek man as a foreigner. They will probably frame me as a British woman who got drunk, and now I've got no evidence. And then I'll have to drag my mum through that. And I know that it will really affect, she'll feel guilty that she didn't come out, and then it will be pointless. So I didn't go to the police. Never. I didn't speak of it to anybody.
Until when?
About 5 years later. Yeah. So I really understand before it happens to you, you think, well, why wouldn't you? Because you can protect other people. Or why wouldn't you go to the police? But until you're in that situation and you're completely traumatized, and you feel like you kind of go through the motions of, this is what I think will happen based on what I've seen happen to so many women.
Especially, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
25 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It was very different.
Very incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Full stop, even with some evidence.
Exactly. And I thought I wouldn't even, they could do a lineup and I don't even remember. No. It was all such a blur. He just looked like a older Greek guy, so that was that. So I never spoke of it, but I thought, I'm never going to be defined by a trauma, because otherwise people win. They take more from you. Yeah. They can actually take your whole life, and I will never be that person. I will never be a victim forever. Obviously I was a victim to a horrible crime, but I will never dinner party over that, if that makes sense. I make that my identity, that I am a rape victim. I will do something else with it, and I will make sure that I live differently, i.e. So from that moment, I never really ever didn't drink. I still don't drink heavily. I might have a glass of wine, but even more than that, I get a bit triggered. Yeah. Because I think I don't want to ever be out of control. I would never take a drink off somebody unless I was in a friend's house. I warn my friends. And it's also something that's been able to open up dialogue with people who've had trauma, especially as a minister. When I have women come to me and talk about abuse that they have suffered as children or from their husbands or boyfriends, actually being able to share something that is relatable does help, because...
Well, it must help massively, because I think you being so open about it and speaking openly must give other people so much strength to talk about their experience as well.
I hope so.
It's really hard to be the first person to say it, or feeling like you're the only one. You're not the only one, but you feel isolated and alone. Yes. But for you to be so open about it opens up this dialogue that they could never have had, even if they spoke about it briefly, they could never really unpack those things without you being just so honest about it and saying, I hear you. Yeah. And I know exactly how this feels and the detrimental effect it has on you during, after. Yeah.
And how much it shapes you, you know, to do things that it changes your personality because you think, I will never be in that situation. And then you're more on edge, even though you don't mean to be. And so I did get counselling. And when I meet victims or survivors, especially from October 7th, I totally get why they wouldn't want to say anything, because the whole world is denying that even happened. So how much worse would that be?
Oh, absolutely.
I can't imagine if I told my story as an 18-year-old and people said, yeah, but, or it didn't happen. Or
did you have it coming?
Yeah.
Which is even worse. Yeah. Because there are so many people, you know, I've spoken to survivors who put shame on themselves when the shame should not be anywhere near them. Yeah. You know, they've done nothing wrong. They are the one that has survived this horrific thing. Yeah. And for people to ever make someone feel like, could they have done something different to avoid it? Well, no, of course not. Yeah. Because if you've got a sick predator, there's nothing you could really do. They'll find a way.
That's right. That's right. And I think it's, from that moment, I used to be very trusting. And now it's helped as a parent as well too. I have one daughter who's extremely beautiful. Now I can tell her and my nieces and all of the people that I influence, not to be paranoid, but actually not to be so naive where you think there aren't predators.
Absolutely.
Because there are so many and they don't care about hurting women, and they will take from you. And so don't put yourself in a situation where you're vulnerable, i.e. being alone after and drinking too much, or having your phone run out of battery, or just not telling people where you're going. Just basic little safety precautions, like wearing the seatbelt.
And I think that's what's so important, because when you told me that you are very honest with your children about what you've been through and you don't filter it because they need to know. And I think that's true. Because when I think about my upbringing, my mum was she's funny. So she would frame it in a funny way, but it was brutal. She would tell me like the worst case scenario. So, okay, I want to go horse riding. You'll fall off and be a vegetable for the rest of your life.
Yes, I get it.
Like, very brutal.
Yeah, love it.
Don't take a drink. Someone will put something in it. Someone will this, that. She'd tell me
and you'll get raped and die. Yes.
In detail.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't you'll die. Just you'll get raped and then you'll never recover and then you'll just kill yourself.
Yeah, okay,
so
I love it.
Yeah. So she was very, very, and I thought, that works.
No, but I think that's brilliant.
I never left a drink unattended.
Yes.
All these catastrophic incidents, and it didn't make me a panicker. Like, believe me, it 100%. Didn't ruin my time. Yeah. But at the same time, she helped me avoid a lot of really dangerous situations. Yes. It was often me pulling my friends away, saying like, we're going home now.
Yes.
I'm not leaving you alone. And them saying, no, please, I want to go back with this guy. Yeah. There's no way that's happening. I remember I dragged a friend.
Oh, you're the protective angel.
I threw her in my car and she'd never forgiven me for it. Yeah. I threw her in my car and she said, what are you doing? I was having fun. And I said, look, you were around a group of just men, one of which was 7 foot, like a bodyguard. Wow. And
7 foot?
Oh, yeah. He was like a bodyguard.
Giant, yeah.
And I threw her in my car and I drove away with her. And she said, why did you do that? You're not my mother. And I said, well, I'm going to call your mother. Yeah. And she said, like, how can you say that? Like, what kind of a friend are you? What's wrong with you? And I just lost my temper. And I said, you know what? If you want to get chopped into little pieces and left in a bush, that's cool, exactly. But not on my time. Yeah. I'm not going to be responsible.
You were channeling your mama. You were like, right. Okay, let's get to
She never forgave me. Yeah. But that's okay.
That's okay.
Because I kept her safe. Yeah. So then you reunited with your now husband.
Yes.
How long, what age were you when you got together with your husband again?
So after that, we had gone our separate ways. He got married.
Oh my God, he got married to someone else.
Yes, exactly. So then I was like, you betrayed our pact of like foreverness.
Yeah.
Love does not exist. And then that's when I was like, men are crap. I did go through a phase, obviously, thinking men are just predators.
Fair enough.
And you have to be careful. It's been a journey to get where I am now. And I just thought love is not real. It's just, I could never have what my parents have. This just is an old-fashioned thing now. There are no good men. I felt like how you feel, where you just think, where are all the good men? And so I just focused on my work. I went to university. I went to Loughborough and I got a legal degree. And then I started working for Savills, which is a property firm.
Yeah.
And I worked in their legal kind of policy, health and safety in the workplace and all of this sort of stuff, writing policies, going to court, things like that. And then I met a man that I married. And then which I won't go into all the details for obvious reasons. For anyone watching, it's because my son is in the room. Yeah. And then we divorced, and without me knowing, Tim got divorced from his wife in the same week, and we didn't even know. So random. And then our spouses filed for divorce because they had their various reasons. There was no adulteries, nothing like that. And they were just done with that type of relationship. And our divorces, without us knowing, came in within 3 days of each other, separate lives. So then we got back together in about 7 years ago, 6 years ago. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So only recently.
Hang on a second. 6 or 7 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So we had 24 years apart. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I thought you'd met young and then just
No.
carried on as you were.
No. There was a whole story.
There's a whole life.
There's a whole lots of things to talk about another time. But there's 23 years. But then when we saw each other again, and it was we were both single, it was I have missed you. I love you so much. And it was just back to how it always was. And we were kind of this is how it always should have been.
Yeah.
But life does take different turns, and that's okay.
Sometimes it's the right person and it's the wrong time.
Exactly.
And it won't work if it's the wrong time.
Yep.
You have
That's
to
right.
you have to have both of those elements to create a great relationship.
I agree. And I think everything in life, all the good things and the bad things, they do shape everything about you. And as you were saying at the beginning, out of bad situations, really glimmers of good and light are created. And so out of all of those experiences and many other experiences, like most people have had all sorts of experiences, nothing is wasted.
Yeah.
I do believe nothing is wasted, even the bad things. It's there is something that you can take that will shape you and that could make a difference for somebody else.
Absolutely. So when was Reverend Hayley Ace
When was she born?
Yeah.
So about 8 years ago, I prior to that, I'd left my job because I was missing out on the kids. I was missing out on their little first words and the crawling, and I never wanted kids, and then I ended up having loads. And
4, right?
4, yeah. And then my husband had 2. My current husband, permanent husband, my current one, he had 2, and then we obviously have joined our families together, and they're all of my babies. We're a very close family. But I left my job and decided to just be a mother. But then I was getting involved in the church, and I just had this really great love. And I really get it when people say I was called to the ministry. And so I went to theology school, got a theology, qualification, and then became ordained. And that was it, really, in a nutshell.
So do you now have a community?
Yeah. I run a church with my husband, who has been a minister for 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so we do it together.
So actually, you have a lot of similar values and beliefs because you were brought up in a heavily religious background.
Yeah.
Clearly he was too.
Yeah, I mean, he has a very different story, but also those similar values that we both share of wanting to make a difference in the world, caring, loving our faith, building a community, family. So all of those key values. So when you find a man, all you need is the key values to be the same.
Absolutely.
And then everything else you can work out.
No, it's absolutely true. Wow. Okay. So you two together, power couple.
Power couple.
Saving the world.
Yeah.
And then let's segue into how I ended up hearing of you, which again, only because of tragic circumstances. So I'll bring you back to October the 7th from my perspective, and then I want to hear about it from your perspective. Yeah. So I remember I woke up on October the 7th and had all these missed calls on my phone, and I thought, that's really weird. My best friend is there. Really, really strange, because he'll usually try and phone me once, leave me a voice note, and he'll know I might not pick it up for a few hours. But there were quite a few calls, and I started to get a bit concerned. So I phoned him back, and he said, like, have you seen what's happened? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I've just woken up, because they're 2 hours ahead there. Yeah. He was like, Claudia, you need to sit down. And he said that the story was jumpy, obviously, because he was in shock. Yeah. There's been this massive attack. We don't fully know what has happened, but the Nova, which I knew to be a very peaceful music festival. Not, some people compare it like, imagine sending your child to Wireless. It's not. It's incredible music and people gathering just because, like, for the love of music and the love of life, and genuinely they are
no judgment and
pro-peace,
beautiful people,
children. Like, let's. You know, the bulk of people that were there was 17, 18. So that's children. And they've left their home and then they've gone to a music festival, and some haven't come home. And their parents never would have imagined at a music festival. Yeah. You wouldn't even, that wouldn't even feature in the things you'd worry about your child going through. Of course you wouldn't. So I sort of heard about that, and I was really, really, really shocked. And that's before I heard about what happened at the kibbutz, Berry. And that's when things started coming out. And I have a friend who's in the army, and he was called up immediately and sent immediately to the kibbutz. Goodness. So he wasn't allowed to talk about exactly, but things were like trickling back. And the things I was hearing, I had to stand by the toilet. I thought I was going to vomit everywhere, because I couldn't believe what I was hearing, because it's bad enough hearing there's been an attack on a country that you love and see as your home.
Yes, which it is.
Yes, but also the nature in which.
The brutality.
I thought to myself, the first thing that came to mind was, those things are so evil that I didn't even know someone could think up something that evil. Like, how did that even feature? Yeah.
Where did they even get the idea to be that depraved?
I thought sadistic? You've got to be so sick. Yeah. That was October 7th. I was sick to my stomach. I was glued to my phone. And
I can almost feel it now.
It was I've got family there as well. And I was on the phone messaging my cousin, please go to my uncle's, because he's sort of, I say in a safe place that's not north.
Yeah, okay. Bit more.
But there was an attack there in the last week. Yeah. So nowhere safe. Oh my gosh. But at the time, I sort of said to her, please, can you go and just at least be with your dad? I got a couple of messages from some people that, non-Jewish people being like, I'm really sorry about what's happened. But for the most part, not much. Yeah. But do you know what? Like, I didn't think much of it. Yeah. I'd say, and this is only speaking from personal experience, I can't speak for what they had to go through. Yeah. For me personally, October the 8th was worse.
100%.
Because everything came to light. Everything. Like, pregnant women murdered and the unborn child cut from their stomachs.
And beheaded. Children set on fire, just the things you can't even.
Barbaric things I've ever heard of in my life. And that if that wasn't bad enough, I then just opened the internet.
I know.
Resistance. What?
Justification.
What? Resistance against what? Israel left Gaza in 2005-6, and they haven't been back since. They kicked out all of the Israelis from Gaza.
Well, and Israel kicked out Israelis. They dragged their own Jewish people who had been in the land for thousands of years, who'd never left, who'd been in Gaza, whose bones and family descendants were buried. They even took the bones. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
They even dug up the bones and took the Jewish bones out of Gaza.
In a bid to have some semblance of peace, so that, fine, Gaza, yours. Yeah. You can make it a paradise.
Fine, go do it.
It's on the edge of the Mediterranean.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Before they destroyed it themselves.
Absolutely.
And the reason they didn't have proper running electricity and things like that was not lack of funds.
No.
It was because their government, who
too busy
are
making
terrorists,
terror tunnels,
spent it all on terror tunnels, weapons, for what?
And their private jets and their Qatar properties.
Qatar mansions. It's all, it's all surface where that money went. So they're oppressing their own people. Israel made a border, which every single country in the world has a right to do.
Well, every single country has a border. You can't just come into England and then just walk in. You have to go through border control. It doesn't mean we're in a prison because we have to go through border control. Same thing, but it's always a different standard for Israel.
And Gaza, there are many people that were coming in to work.
Yeah, I think it was like 300,000.
300,000 people had permits.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a different country. It's like when you cross over from France to Geneva.
Yeah.
You have a permit.
Yeah.
So not what people are fantasizing about.
Yeah. They're delusional.
And actually a lot of the families in Gaza, that was their livelihoods, because there were a lot more opportunities here because the Israeli government invested in not only iron domes to protect their citizens, because every single life is precious.
Yes.
Jewish, Muslim, Christian.
Absolutely.
Let's add that 20% of Israelis are Muslim. So
exactly.
Just like this is a Christian country.
Exactly.
What are the percentage of Muslims? What are the percentage of Catholics?
Exactly.
But it's a state that is Christian.
Yeah.
My family and my ancestors who came to this country happily accepted that.
Yeah.
Never tried to change anything. And I think it's been totally misconstrued.
Yeah.
And people forget there's another border, Egypt.
Exactly. Which is actually even harsher. Have you seen the border in between Egypt and Gaza?
Yes.
No, they even dug it and they put the wall in through the ground in the earth, like 20 meters or something. They're completely paranoid.
But nobody has said a word about Egypt making a decision. And Egypt were quite right to make that decision.
Of course.
Because the truth is that there's a terrorist organization running amok in Gaza in plain clothes.
Yeah.
You can't differentiate who's who.
No, but the whole population's radicalized.
I mean, I read that 75% of the population not only voted for Hamas, but back Hamas's actions on October the 7th.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, when we talk about innocent civilians, babies, yes.
Yeah.
Even though they're getting radicalized quite early, but not their fault.
Yeah.
Children who don't have any other choices.
Yeah.
And then there's a small sect who feel oppressed by Hamas and see it for what it is and miss their jobs, miss going in and out of Israel and coming home because they were blocked off for life after that.
Yeah.
So they've only ruined it for their people even more.
Which is fair enough.
Totally fair enough. But the thing that broke my soul was what I read on the internet. Did those rapes even happen? Apparently it's all fake. Nobody was put in an oven. No, I'm like, is this? Because I love
what planet are we living on?
I love history, so I have done so much research on So when it comes to the Holocaust and what Jews went through, not that many decades ago, I know a lot, and I thought this is mirroring what was happening when people started talking about the concentration. It's not a thing. It never happened. I mean, there are still people that say it never happened, even though there are literal photographs and video footage. But
that's how delusional they are. That's how
much they hate.
How much they hate Jews. But they can't admit it.
But that's the truth. Because
that is the truth.
The streets of London were empty when hundreds of thousands of people were being killed in Syria.
by Nasrallah, who they now worship. Nasrallah was the head of Hezbollah, who helped Assad with the siege of Aleppo, killing over 20,000 women and children in Aleppo alone. And then 600,000 people were murdered by the Assad regime, women and children mainly, because they were the most vulnerable. And Hezbollah, with Nasrallah as the leader, was instrumental in that massacre, which is why so many Syrians were celebrating when they heard about Nasrallah. Then you see on the streets of London some white do-gooder or some Islamist in this country literally holding up a picture of Nasrallah, kissing him, crying that he's been murdered, as if he was some virtuous Muslim saint. He was an Islamist who hated Muslims as well. He hated everybody that didn't agree with his version of radical Sharia law. And that is a fact. It's not making it up. It's not being an Islamophobe. In fact, I was in my local corner shop yesterday, just buying some bits and bobs, and they were Turkish. I know them quite well. And I said, "You're Muslims, right?" And they said, "Yeah, we're Muslims." And I said, "I'm a Christian. Obviously, I've got a Star of David that I wear all the time. And do you have a problem with Jews?" And they said, "No, why would we?" I said, "What is your position on Nasrallah, Hezbollah? I just want to know, because I actually need to know that because I support your shop a lot." And they said, "We don't understand these Western idiots who are supporting Nasrallah, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis."
But they don't really support them. They just hate Jews that much.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
But then that supports them.
Yes, but where were they?
They weren't
starving.
there.
Do you know what? There was a shop I used to go to. She had this, I'll out it. It was called
out it.
It was called Glow Bar, and it was in Mortimer Street, and I loved it.
Yeah.
There were these amazing moon milks, and she put ashwagandha in, and she had this incredible business story of how she grew this business, and I really supported it. So I made it my mission whenever I was anywhere near, I'd go and get my moon milk, pick up some snacks. I was like, female founded business.
Yeah.
Props to her, real respect.
Love you.
And she posted something on Instagram that wasn't true. It was about the hospital in Gaza that was apparently blown up by Israelis, but actually they were rockets that were fired from the hospital and misfired back on.
Yeah.
And she posted it, and I said, "Hey, not attacking you at all. It was genuinely like this."
Yeah.
Huge fan of Glow Bar. I think it didn't survive COVID.
Yeah.
I really loved it. Hoping I can buy some of the mixtures and still support in some way. But just wanted to let you know, be careful with misinformation. Posting stuff immediately as it comes out, because, Western media has been reporting a lot of falsities.
Yeah.
I know that's hard to believe.
Yes.
But they have.
Shock horror.
I just wanted to let you know, because, you seem like a lovely person.
And people have a responsibility if they're going to spread that.
I wanted to give you the heads up.
Yeah.
Maybe just hold it a bit.
What does she say?
I have never received such a vile message. She was like, "Well, luckily my shop isn't open anymore, so I couldn't give a shit if you were a customer or not, or if you've come back or not. And FYI, this is the biggest genocidal attack and the biggest humanitarian crisis of this century." What? Have you heard of Yemen, where millions of people are starving?
Millions.
You're talking about, and don't get me wrong, I don't support
What
killing.
about Nigeria? The Boko Haram?
You're talking about, and this is someone who has degrees is
It's irrelevant.
intelligent.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant, I've learned.
Yeah.
But this is supposed to be an educated, cultured woman, started a business, someone I admired, who I've said in my message, "I really admire you." And she's come back at me, basically going off on one. So rude, get away from me, don't ever contact me. I don't give a shit if you were my customer, don't have a shop anymore. Really going in hard. And I thought, and I'd had a few to-dos, the chef, Gizzy Erskine, she sent me some vile messages. God, if I could go to the Daily Mail with a few of these...
Do it.
I would say celebrities, let's be honest, they're not celebrities.
No, they're like Z-list. But there should be no... There should be no hiding place for anti-Semites.
Right.
Because they are...
But they don't see themselves as anti-Semites. No. I don't hate Jews. I only have a problem with...
Zionists.
But 95% of Jews are Zionists.
Yeah.
Guess what?
100%.
There's only one Jewish country in the world.
Yeah.
One.
Why do you have a problem with that? Exactly. And the problem is they deconstruct their own character almost immediately, because they give the righteous indignation of their virtue signaling position to say, what about the women and children? You slaughter women and children. But if their position of caring about women and children was true, they would have cared about the millions of women and children, as you quite rightly say, in Nigeria, in Yemen, in Syria, in Ukraine. Let's not forget all of those people still being slaughtered by the Russians. Israel,
your own women,
your own people.
There's an English hostage right now. No one's,
Emily,
not one
Damari.
person has mentioned Emily's name, and that is a British citizen. And they take to the streets on Saturdays, rain or shine, with their signs, and just miss out the little detail that one of their own, a British citizen, is sitting there.
Did you know that they killed her dog in front of her? Just because before they took her dog was 11, her best friend, this beautiful dog. And before they took her, just to inflict, because they are evil, just to inflict psychological torture, they killed her dog in front of her. Like, why are the Western fools defending this ideology? And this is why on October 8th, it supercharged me when I saw in Sydney them shouting from the Sydney Opera House, 24 hours, not even 24 hours after the largest massacre of Jews, they were screaming, "Gas the Jews." They were lighting fireworks and celebrating the despicable words we don't even have to describe how evil what happened on October 7th. We don't have the words because they've never been spoken before, because evil's not good enough and trauma is not strong enough.
None of it's good enough.
None of
when
it.
you ask someone, when someone says, how do you, I actually had a lovely guy, she was a guest the other week on my show, and she wasn't Jewish or anything, but she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "That was really sweet of you. Thank you. Are you okay? Like, how are you feeling?" She's a neuroscientist. She's good.
Amazing.
She's good at analysing.
Yeah.
She could tell I was not okay. And I said,
"Of course you're not."
I said, "Do you know what? By the way, thank you so much for asking me. That's few and far between. Most people don't care who aren't Jewish. But second of all, I don't know how to describe it.
Yes.
Because I go through multiple emotions in a single second.
Yeah.
And that is mainly around anger, frustration, sickness, sadness, and anxiety. But that all in the space of that 1 second is all coming to a head together. And that's the only way I can describe how every Jewish person is feeling right now. And it's hard to, and you know, I've watched amazing podcasts and I've watched amazing videos where people articulate themselves, and God, I love Fleur.
I love her. Oh my, she's my
where she
favourite.
calls someone out every week. Love it.
She's great.
Fearless.
Powerful Jewish woman. I love Fleur.
And I haven't been able to, even now I can't intellectually describe how I'm feeling about this, because there aren't any words for it. Because
they haven't been invented, because
No.
they just haven't, because this depravity, it wasn't enough that they did what they did. But the extra thing, I've seen the 43 minutes that the IDF created pulling together the body cam stuff. I've seen it 8 times because I've been involved in so many advocate projects, the tunnel project,
So
where
you've
we
seen the
recreated.
footage?
Seen the footage.
Okay, so to everyone that says there's no footage, it didn't happen, what did you see?
I have seen the footage many times. It is all body cam footage from Hamas's body cam.
They're celebrating, right?
The whole time they are worshipping their God. The whole time they are laughing. They are celebrating. They're not saying let's kill the Zionist. They're saying get the Jew, kill the Jew dog.
Jews.
There's the Jew. I've seen little girls cower in fear and them laugh, scream Allah Akbar, shoot them in the head. A child. I have seen the most despicable acts of sadism of that. I've seen complete desecration of bodies. I've seen women being hunted down, begging for their life, being slaughtered. I know. I have seen images of desecrated bodies, because it wasn't enough for them to rape. They then also put nails and knives into the vaginas of women. They pulled out their intestines from their vaginas.
It's so sick.
They raped them in front of their families. They took off their breasts. They cut out their livers. They did the most demonic sick acts, and I've seen it all. I have seen them blow up a father trying to protect his children, and the children coming out dazed, screaming, Abba's dead, Abba's dead. And they're screaming at they're trying to comfort each other, and they realise that Abba is dead. And the terrorist laughing, and then they help themselves to their fridge and drink some of their milk, put it on the side. I've seen them set fire, worshipping Allah. Pure evil. This is not about Zionists. It's not about, it's all about Jews. I've heard their own voices phone up their parents saying, inshallah, you'll be so proud of me. With my hands and with my knife, I have slaughtered 10 Jews, and now I'm on the phone of the dead Jew. I've seen pictures and I've seen videos of children, teenagers cowering in cubicles on the beach because they were camping. I've seen them cowering and screaming. They're in their shorts because they were at the beach. It was Simchat Torah. They were on holiday. And then I have seen where the terrorists have come in and slaughtered them all, and there's blood everywhere. And it was just not enough to kill. They wanted to kill in the most painful, humiliating, degrading way possible. And they streamed it because they want to torture you. They want to torture Jews. They want the family, and they have succeeded. They took hostages. They took children. They took a baby.
Let's remember who are still there.
101 innocent people, including Emily Damari, 26 years old. Actually, she's 28 now. Emily Damari, including Naama Levy, who was a peace activist, who, when the disgusting terrorists rounded her and her friends up and they were laughing, saying they're going to be our sabayas, they're going to be our sex slaves, calling them dogs, calling them dog dirty Jews. Teenagers, I've got children the same age. They are children. She's saying, I've got Palestinian friends. They don't care. They don't care about peace. They don't care about anything except inflicting pain upon the Jews. And let us not forget what the charter is. The first line of the charter of the Iranian regime, the Islamic regime in Iran, is the destruction of Israel. You can't destroy Israel without killing everyone inside it, because that is Israel. What is Israel made up of? 80%, 70% Jews.
I went to my local coffee shop. It's Turkish owned, Muslim Turkish, and they are lovely, family owned. And they always ask me if I was okay. And one of the ladies who works in there, who I've become quite friendly with, she is from Iran. And I knew that she was going over there for about a month and a half to see, she's got a serious boyfriend there. They're apart right now.
Yeah.
And I said to her, how is it? And she said, women are oppressed there. Like, I can't go back there and get a normal job and live a normal life. Like, women are punished. And she said, do you want to know something? I was in Iran that first time that Israel attacked Iran.
In self-defense.
We were all celebrating because we were like, it is time for someone to attack the government. Obviously, we hope that none of us are hurt, but somebody needs to do something, and they were all celebrating.
Yeah.
So there is this. So I also want to be clear that, like, this isn't us saying, oh, it's because they're Muslim they behave like this.
Absolutely not.
I have
There are loads of Muslim advocates. My best friend in the whole world, she's a sister to me. She is the most devout Muslim, beautiful woman. She feels exactly the same way, because the Islamists are very different to Muslims. They both read the Quran, they both say Allah Akbar, but the Islamists want to kill everybody, including Muslims, and they do in their millions, who do not want to be subjugated by Sharia law.
They're killing Muslims. Yeah.
They kill Muslims.
So I kind of want to be clear as well that it's not fair on the law-abiding, God-fearing, genuinely good Muslims that there are
millions
for the most part.
They're the majority.
They're the majority. So when we're talking about Islamic extremists and sympathizers.
And if you take about, I always say to people, this is not Jews and Christians against Muslims.
No way.
This is not Israel even against Palestine. This is humanity versus evil. like life versus death, good versus bad. And in the good camp, you have Muslims and Jews and Christians and people with no faith. And in the bad camp, you have Jews and Christians and Muslims and people of no faith. That's all it is, because you have a people that value life, as you said earlier, about the life is precious, which is such a value in Judaism that I have learned, and in the Israeli society, which is why they go to such extreme lengths to ensure civilian casualties are, it's as low as possible. And then you have another group of people who literally write a governmental charter to destroy another country.
And every single human being in it, teenage, old.
And kill all the Jews.
Kill
actually
all Jews
worldwide.
Around the world. Yeah.
Imagine if, as a Polynesian, there was something that Australia wrote saying, our number one charter as a country is to destroy New Zealand and kill all of the Māori, wherever they are. But we want to have New Zealand and we're going to call it something else. We're going to call it Australia. Like everyone in the whole world would say, how dare you?
Not in this case.
Not in this case.
Because they say that the Jews kicked everyone out. They haven't done basic history. Jews have been there for thousands of years. Yes, there was a spike in migration there following World War II in the concentration camps because people needed to go home.
Yeah.
And they couldn't go back to Poland, but Israel was always their home. Yeah. And they've been there for centuries.
And also they're not all from Poland. What is that about?
Everywhere, Poland, Germany, Ukraine. And then there's Iran, Iraq. There's all
Lebanon, Morocco.
Different colours, all different types of Jews. But there's this notion that there was not a single Jew in this place and they all barged in, fresh out of concentration camps. With their ribs showing and really barged in, right?
Yeah. No. The narrative is that the beautiful, sweet Palestinians said, come and live in our country. We'll share it with you. That is what they're like. They shared it and then they took it. That's not the truth. Before 1948, the Arabs were trying to kill the Jews and they did succeed.
Absolutely.
And they were doing that for years. But it's from my position as a Christian, I do teach a lot about anti-Semitism, and the thing that I believe has been instrumental in creating this underbelly of Jew hatred is Christianity and the church. And most people think, well, Christians are good people, or why would you say that? For the last 1600 years, and including today, if we think about what the Pope has recently said and the Archbishop of Canterbury, which I can expand on if you want, Christians have been at the forefront of creating blood libels, inventing tropes and canards which dehumanize Jews, creating documents that people then, because we didn't have social media and it was the church was the greatest influence over societies, two Christians wrote the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which you probably know, but this is where it framed Jews as controlling the world, Jews are greedy. And so because the Christians all believed that was the majority of people, because it was through the Catholic Church and then through the Protestant Church. It were Christians who led pogroms against Jews, even led by priests. There was one knight who was a Christian who said he had a vision that God said that you have to go and kill the Jews. So he went through
the Jews, this tiny minority of people.
He went through the Rhineland and killed over 100,000 Jews. And so there has Christians' silence in Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany was a Protestant nation, and they were like 70% of the population. Who defended the Jews? A small minority: Corrie ten Boom, Bonhoeffer, people that you could name.
Precisely, which is why I was going to say now these people have gone down in history, the non-Jewish people who have defended the Jewish people. Recently I went to the cinema and I saw the film about Nicholas Winton.
Oh my gosh, yes.
He stuck his neck out to rescue Jewish people from Czechoslovakia, to save their lives. And he didn't have to do that. He put himself in danger.
I know.
He used his own money, his own resources, and he fought and fought and fought when everyone around him was like, why do you care?
Yeah, who cares?
But it's people like that go down in history, which is why Reverend Hayley Ace, you're going down. Yeah. You're going to be on a BBC drama in about 50 years.
No, but this is righteous people. And this is like, I think from my point of view, when I saw, and I can echo what you what you were saying. I felt that as well on October 7th. The first thing I saw was Nama Levy being pulled out of the Jeep.
Yeah, me
and
too.
I'm not a crier, but for the last year, I cry all the time
Me
now.
too.
It's like the depth of pain, and it was like I let out this wail of just sadness because I knew what would happen. I knew that the world would not even momentarily have compassion, that it would go straight into, you deserve it, you're land thieves, you're Zionists, you shouldn't have done that, what about the concentration camp, what about this, what about that, because we can't feel anything, you deserve everything. And it was like this bracing myself to know what was going to come. And
we knew. My dad said, I just spoke to my dad on the phone that day on October the 7th, and he said, be prepared.
Yeah.
Like,
isn't that sad?
Put your belt on, because by tomorrow, I remember I reposted something on October the 7th onto my stories, and this was after I'd sort of half realised all the things that had happened, and it said, "Dear Israel, go get him."
I love that.
And I still stand by that.
Yes.
Because the truth was, it was the biggest attack on Jews, but it wasn't just Jews that died.
They killed Muslims as well.
Christians, English, Thai, and I was so appalled. And so my instant reaction was, I hope you get them.
Go get them.
Protect
Absolutely.
yourself. Can you imagine in World War II that Germany, the Nazis, were bombing all around, everywhere, and let's say Europe, right? How many people were lining the streets going, what about the poor people in Nazi Germany?
Hitler.
What about the innocents in Germany? There were loads of innocent people in Germany killed in the bombs. Children, women, men, whoever, human beings.
Yeah.
And that's terrible.
Of course.
Why can I find space in my heart to grieve for any person that is injured, hurt, no matter their race, religion? And why does everybody else, for the most part, feel like, I'm not a Middle Eastern expert, but I've done a lot of TikToking and BBC watching.
Yes.
So I'm going to take a side. That side is them. You don't have to take a side.
No, you can hold space for the children.
You can hold space for everyone that's innocent and affected.
100%.
Or keep your mouth shut.
Yes.
It is the most complex conflict in the history of time.
Yeah.
If half the politicians don't understand it,
why,
Karen in Leeds, do you think that you can throw around the words genocide, ethnic cleanse? You want to talk about ethnic cleansing?
Yeah.
The smallest group of people ever, Jews, marginalized.
Yeah.
Rockets coming from all four corners.
Yeah.
For 11 months, Hezbollah sent rockets over.
11,000.
For 11 months.
I know.
And they didn't do anything back.
I know.
The day Israel were like, do you know what?
Done now.
It's been 11 months of you sending rockets over. We're probably going to need to do something about this. Day one, Israel are attacking again.
I know.
What country is not allowed to defend themselves?
No other country is scrutinised the way that Israel is. I've never heard anyone say, are you pro-New Zealand or like anti-New Zealand? It's like the only pro and anti argument is over Israel, because ultimately, and what I see on the streets for, I go to a lot of counter protests. I organise a lot of counter protests, and we've Stop the Hate, which is a grassroots movement, and with the Human Chain, which is also a grassroots movement, which is we've been trying to advocate for the hostages. We've been holding rallies and vigils and all sorts of things for the last year. When I do these counter protests and I see all of these either Islamists who do support the killing of Jews, 100%. I see people from the Islamic regime who we know are agents within the IRGC in this country, members of Hamas based in this country.
Oh, I know.
They know exactly what the plan is. They know exactly how they're using the fools around them. But then you have these useful idiots who are cheering on this genocidal idea, who don't want to talk. And I understand now, after speaking to thousands of people in the last 8 months, thousands of people who are full of hatred, there is no space in their heart to even look at facts or history.
They've refused to hear. They're like, la, 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 la.
Yeah. So they are a write-off. They are. And I just feel like right now, and I made a video and I'm going to put it up a bit later, that we should stop giving people the benefit of the doubt. They don't really know what they're doing. Okay. But they know they're marching with someone calling for the death of Jews, and they're not stopping it. and they're laughing when they're saying it.
Someone said to me, but I wasn't holding a sign.
But you were around, you're complicit.
What are you doing at that protest?
Yeah.
I said to this girl, she used to work for me, and I was really hurt. She was posting from the river to the sea. I was like, that's exterminating the whole of Israel and all my family. I didn't realise.
Yeah, I know.
Are you stupid? Why are you reposting something you didn't know about? Are you this stupid?
But even in law, ignorance is no defence. You can't say, I didn't know speeding was like a crime.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so you're still going to be punished for it.
Yeah,
so,
I didn't know I couldn't murder.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess I'm not going to prison.
Exactly.
But people are using words like genocide, colonizing, ethnic cleansing, and they're like, I've got all the lingo.
Yeah.
And they feel very entitled to jump on the bandwagon and have a political argument. And you think, what are you doing, you idiot?
I know. And especially when they say, when I am very educated about this situation, about the Middle East, about Hezbollah, Hamas, all of it, and then they say to me, get educated and like come back.
You're the only person that actually does take their time to learn the ins and outs and the nuances of the situation.
Yeah.
What I'm interested to know is, because the one thing that I've been struggling with is I'll post something completely just, I'm sad, I'm heartbroken. Nothing about anything else other than I'm really sad. And people will respond to it and they'll say, but this didn't just come out of nowhere. They've been oppressing and what about
So they're sympathizing with an Islamic ideology.
But what about all the people that have died in Gaza? What is your response to people when you write something truly from the heart about just Israelis, all religions and all colours?
Yes.
And this unprovoked, crazy, barbaric attack, when they say, but what about?
Yeah.
It's disproportionate. What's a proportionate way to defend yourself?
Maybe they should go and gut a few children in Gaza. Is that what they want? They want it to be like,
if
maybe
they
should burn a baby alive. Is that what you want?
Should there be babies in the ovens there?
Yeah. Do they want to rape a woman with a knife in Gaza? Is that what you want them to do?
Right.
Because that would be proportionate.
That's proportionate, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. God, I feel like I could go on for hours about this.
100%, because this is like, and every single day there's something new. Obviously, I mean, I'm new to social media now. Like, I haven't had it for a year yet, so I still feel like I'm a beginner and still learning the ropes. I obviously get that comment a lot. I could say something like, I could put a Bible verse from Torah. I could put something out saying, I bless the Jews with safety, pray for peace of Jerusalem. And then I will get hundreds of comments and private messages giving me the same response. Like, how could you? Yeah, but where's your humanity? What about this? What about that?
Where's your humanity?
But equally, I say to some people, and it depends on the day, how angry I feel, because I have those same feelings. Some days I am, or some moments, I have the same feeling of all these emotions: anger, rage, deep sadness, deep hopelessness about what is going on, fear. And so it depends how someone catches me, what mood they catch me in. And I say to some people when I'm feeling like more generous with my words, if I was collecting money for the Heart Foundation, would you come up to me and say, yeah, but what about cancer? Okay, what about cancer? I'm collecting for the Heart Foundation. Why do you now have to bring that one in? Okay, yes, cancer is also very sad and we should do something about that. So my response is always, of course, I feel for anyone in the world who is suffering
100%.
in a
who's
war
innocent.
situation, who's innocent.
Who's innocent.
It's terrible. But Hamas, in this circumstance, are entirely culpable, and I hold them completely responsible for starting a war that Israel didn't want, for invading a country that was at peace, for radicalizing their people with a death wish to worship martyrdom and jihad, to completely poison their whole society against Jews, to create a terror tunnel system with no shelters, and to completely rob their own people of any chance of a normal life.
More universities, more water, their own electricity.
Yeah.
What oppressors give electricity and humanitarian aid to their enemy? Ever? Name me one.
No one.
There isn't.
But all of this shows, and this is what I always have to hold on to, light does cast out darkness, good does overcome, and the truth always comes out. And even though it feels like that's a long way off, and even though it feels like these people who have so much hate in their heart feel so confident about their hatred, don't they? They feel so supported by all their people. They could say anything and they laugh and cheer. And I've been surrounded by people being awful to me, but ultimately none of it makes sense because they don't have the humanity they say they have. They really don't. And they don't want to listen. They don't want to look at facts. And every single Israeli and Jewish person I know will always say, of course it's sad what's happening. No one wants war. We don't want anyone to die. Of course we care. That's why Israel is sending in humanitarian aid. That is why we gave them free water, and we didn't just like go in and bomb their own water supply. We just stopped supplying the water that we were giving for free because they were using it to fire rockets at our children.
To pay for the rockets at our...
So to me, Israel... all of this will be uncovered and the world will see in time that Israel has been the most decent. They have been the most moral army. They will see that the ratio of civilian to militant deaths is currently a ratio of 1-to-1 and an average is 9-to-1, 9 civilians to 1 militant. And at the moment, Israel's 1-to-1. If you believe their figures of 40,000, which are Hamas figures, which is a lot of information about
Why would you believe Hamas?
Yeah, and how doctored they are. Israel has already said they have 100% killed 20,000 Hamas terrorists. That number also includes all of the natural deaths. Do you know that?
Oh my God.
And that would be a natural death anyway. They don't count natural deaths outside it.
Have you seen there's a guy in Gaza and he's like an actor.
Oh yeah, he's died like 20 times.
He's died like 20 times. And he's been like, they've had like the news camera on him covered in rubble, like,
yeah.
And then he emerges out and it's like, wait a second, he was in that video where he was on a stretcher dead last week.
But that's how stupid the idiots are. And to me, it sounds mean, a Christian reverend saying they're idiots, but they are foolish. And the Bible talks a lot about fools and foolish people. And for me, I just think, now we can see who we're surrounded by. And this will pass, but now we can see you. We can see your position, that you so quickly partnered with something so hateful and you really showed your true colours about how you feel about Jews, because you straight away ate up all of those lies. You could say anything about Jews. Even Zach Sage did a video where he went in to universities and said, did you know, like it was a satirical thing, that the Israeli army are like tickling Hamas to death? And they went, I believe it completely. And he went, how evil are they? And they like, yes, because they will believe anything because they're so desperate to demonize the Jews.
Or when they strip them into their underwear, the Hamas terrorists, suicide bombers,
to make sure there's no
bombs. And it's like, they humiliated the citizens of Gaza by making them line up without clothes. It's like the Holocaust again.
It's nothing to do with the Holocaust. And Gaza was no concentration camp. It was actually, there was beautiful areas.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
As good as they could make it with their genocidal, ideology.
Yeah.
Against Jews. But yeah, I think this will pass, but there's going to be a lot of pain.
Do you know what? I always say whenever someone close to me is going through something really, really painful, I always say to them, the extra part of pain that you will experience is that when you're going through the worst time of your life, you will then realize who is genuinely a true friend, family member. And clarity can be an incredibly painful pill to swallow. Very necessary one.
Right. Yeah.
Because they say ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
So clarity is extremely painful. But I promise you that clarity will serve you so well in your future.
Yeah.
And the decisions that you make, however painful and however much you have on your plate right now, having to deal with now 2 sets of tragedies.
Yeah.
Clarity is everything.
It really is.
You have to go through it to come out. And this is the way through. And I genuinely believe that those few people like you who are on the right side of history will be celebrated and fight onto, and that everyone needs to know about. So thank you so much in so many different ways.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And we could do this for hours, couldn't we? Really? There's so many places we could take it. But I appreciate you so much. You're doing such an incredible job.
You have no idea what a comfort you have been to the community, and even the people that you don't know that see what you do. It has been unbelievably soothing and therapeutic to a lot of people. So
well, I want you to know, I do want you to know though, and anyone watching that is Jewish, that there are lots of us, and that we do love you, and we do see you, and we do love Israel, and we know who the IDF is, and we know the truth, and we know the history, and we will not tolerate it. And so many people that feel just like me, they feel outraged at this situation. They are standing up, they're putting up the posters, they're doing things, they are there, but we don't have the algorithm on our side. No. We don't have funding from Iran to give us a platform to even be heard above the noise of the hate, and that we are here for you. And so many people have said to me, if they come for the Jews, they have to literally go through over my dead body. You know, there is so much love for you. So don't be gaslit to think that you're alone, because the normal, decent people and millions of people stand with you and your people and with Israel.
Thank you.
So, love you.
This has been emotional. Yeah. Love you.